exams today. That was the item that was on the calendar. We're gonna go over those next week after the test. Here's why. I need you guys to do some more practice with the workbook before next week's test. It's a very, very fast turnaround time. The test is next week on Wednesday, okay? Then we have a hybrid day, and then we're meeting again on Friday. And on Friday, it said we were gonna do kind of an introduction to macroeconomics and sort of wrap up micro. The way we're gonna wrap up micro is by reviewing those exams. So if any of you wanna make an appointment to come and talk about your exam individually, I would be happy to do that, okay? So if you are just dying to take a look at your exam before next week on Friday when we review it as a group, you can make an appointment and I'm happy to talk to you. Hi, Ms. Pleggy, how can I help you?
I'm sorry to bother you. Janine had texted me that you were looking for subtopics, like some.
No, I was just looking
Or
for
the
her
class list.
The
And-
sub found it.
Yes,
I texted her
okay.
back that she found it earlier.
Okay, I wondered if Janine must not have got it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure
It's
you
all
knew
good.
that it was all
Yep.
found and all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. Okay. So today we're gonna do the notes for 6.5, and then we're going to review the workbook problems I assigned you earlier in this unit, and then we're gonna do some group work where you guys are gonna engage with 3 practice FRQs and present your findings to the rest of the class, because I feel like that is also very, very helpful in preparing you for unit tests, okay? Does anybody have any questions about the very last minute change to our schedule? Is someone recording for Gwenny? Awesome, thank you. Kendall's got it, thanks Olivia. All right. This module, by the way, has a lot of information in it that is not going to be tested on the exam. So I'm gonna limit my remarks to what I know you're going to be tested on, and then we're gonna go straight into the workbook work, okay? Does that work for you guys? Okay, so here, these are the learning objectives, but my learning objective for you guys is for you to understand how something called the Lorenz curve and the Gini index is related to measures of income and wealth inequality, okay? So there are 2 technical aspects of this module that I know you will be tested on. And the first is the Lorenz curve, Lorenz, and the other is called the Gini index, and that's spelled Gini, okay? The Gini index. And in terms of discussing solutions to poverty and economic inequality, we're gonna have a brief moment where we talk about the federal tax system that we have and marginal tax rates, and then we're gonna move on, okay? All right. I don't really wanna get into all this in terms of poverty stuff. These are things that are better covered in a government class, except to say that income inequality in the United States has generally been growing since the early to mid 1970s. It's stabilized for a while, and then it's been growing again since the pandemic, okay? Just so that you guys know that, like, kind of historically where we are. So see here, the poverty rate, dip, 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 and then we've had some ups and downs. But in terms of income inequality, it's really about, the fact that the very, very rich control such a huge portion of the wealth in this country, right? And the gap between the wealthiest in our country and the poorest in our country. And that gap is getting wider and wider, okay? And why is that important? In government class, you might talk about how important it is for there to be social mobility based on opportunity, so that we have a strong middle class. When there's a strong middle class, there are opportunities for people to get to higher levels of the income, the income levels, right? It sort of adheres more closely to our ideas about a meritocracy. Okay? Do you guys know what it means for there to be a meritocracy? Okay, meaning that you get a job or you get a position or you get entrance into a college or what have you based on your merit, based on your skills, based on your education, based on your experience, etc., not based on who you know or who your dad went to Yale with or whatever, okay? So we like to say that there's equality of opportunity, but when there are lots of systemic barriers in place for certain groups to get to the things that give you that opportunity, i.e. a high quality education, market power in the labor market, etc., you feel like you have an opportunity, like you have a chance, right? Some of us were born on third base and getting into home is just not that hard versus others who really have to struggle from the jump to get there. Okay, so basically, I'm not gonna try to spend a lot of time talking about these socially systemic issues in our country because I think you guys are pretty aware of what they are, and they're better suited for a sociology or a government class. Okay, that being said, they do create problems in the economy when there are large demographic groups that are kind of not lining up with what we consider the social norm of the white male, right? So women have made a lot of strides in the last 40 years, especially white women, but we still see, and there has been progress with different racial and ethnic minority groups in the last 40 years, but that progress is slow and disappointing, frankly. Okay. In terms of wages, this is just saying that there are what are called compensating differentials, meaning that certain jobs reflect the fact that some jobs are less pleasant or more dangerous than others. And that's just saying, like, that's why garbage collectors and utility linemen make more money than other types of workers that require less training and skill because they're considered less pleasant. Okay. All right. I think it's no surprise to you guys that the higher level of education and training that you have, the more opportunities you have for higher levels of compensation, okay? And so that's like earnings by educational level, and this is from 2020, and obviously the higher your level of education, the better off you're gonna do in our economy, okay? This is just kind of going over different types of ways that we've tried to make sure that there is better income equality in this country with unions, etc. We've got something called efficiency wages. Efficiency wages is a higher wage than the market would allow for a firm, and they pay a higher wage so that they don't have turnover, okay? That motivates hard work and reduces worker turnover. Okay, this is all in the notes by, okay, but we're not trying to say that institutional racism, sexism, ageism, etc. doesn't exist. It does. What we're doing about it is up for debate. And again, this is not a philosophy class, nor is it a government policy class, but that's something you guys can talk about later. I think you guys know that right now those issues are extraordinarily controversial. There is a very sort of large push culturally to sell a narrative that, racism is over, sexism is over, and it is legally, by the way. Legally, it is over. Do you guys know what I mean when I say it's legally over? There are laws in place to protect certain groups, marginalized groups, okay? So legally it is, but do you guys know what de facto discrimination is? And why there's systemic discrimination? It means that the law may say this, but in practice, by the facts, right? In practicality, it still happens, and there are social, cultural, etc., historic reasons that takes place, okay? And a lot of it has to do with unconscious bias. And unconscious bias is just that, it's unconscious, you don't even know you're doing it. So the people who are doing it, they're not at fault, right? It's their brain tricking them based on, we're all swimming in this aquarium of what we grew up in, and you don't even know that that's the water you're in or the aquarium you're in, okay? So I'm not trying to place blame. My point is that these things exist, and the government has tried to do some things to deal with it, but they are very controversial, to say the least. And I think we saw that when the Supreme Court overturned affirmative action in higher education earlier this year, so that universities couldn't discriminate against white people. Okay, but we still have huge differences across workers according to gender and ethnicity, etc. And our goal, right, a more perfect union, equality of opportunity, is still the goal. How we're gonna get there, again, controversial, difficult, and incrementally over the decades, okay? What I want you guys to understand, and we're gonna address this more in our macro work, is that there are costs to the economy for this type of inequality, economic inequality, okay? It leads to more expensive social problems down the road, and we will cover that later. When there's a lack of affordable health care, lack of affordable housing, lack of high quality public education, and access to higher education and job training programs, it creates more expensive social problems down the road, okay? And we'll get to that later. All right. What I want you guys to know is when we talk about the Lorenz curve and we talk about the Gini index, what we are looking at are averages. Kind of like we're gonna be looking at mean and median household income, how that compares to the highest sort of brackets of economic earnings and the lowest as well, okay? All right, so this is kind of the different quintiles and their income rates, right? So the majority are in this top quintile in terms of like the percentage of total US income, which is also wealth, right? So the top two, like the top 10 and like 15% control about 75% of the wealth in this country. That's a very small group, 15% controlling 75%. That's a lot of income inequality. It used to not be that bad. All right, so what is the Lorenz curve? The Lorenz curve measures on the horizontal axis the cumulative percentage of the population, okay? So this is the amount, like the people, what's that? And this is the cumulative percentage of income, all right? This is the line of equality. And this equality measure goes from 0 to 1. And that would be like if you had a Gini index of 1, which is derived from the Lorenz curve, it would be like one person or one family controls 100% of the wealth in this country, okay? And if the Gini index is a 0, that means 100% of the wealth is equally distributed across everybody, okay? So the line of equality is here, and then this kind of gives you an idea of sort of the farther out that it bows, the more unequal income is distributed in your country or your economy, okay? The closer it is to the line of equality, the more equally distributed that is the income inequality in your country, okay? So it indicates the percentage of all income received by the poorest members of the population. So if we look at the poorest people, like this is the 20% control less than 20% of income in this nation, right? And we've got about 75% controlling, okay, 25%. That's not accurate. That's like what this particular curve shows, okay? That's not what the United States has, okay? So if everyone received the same income, the Lorenz curve would follow the line of equality. The only place this is gonna happen is in a command economy, okay? All right. Income inequality causes the Lorenz curve to fall below the line of equality. And we would expect that to happen, right? We would expect there to be differences based on lots of different factors. The Gini coefficient that I mentioned before summarizes income inequality based on how unequally income is distributed. Here's the formula for it. So A and B correspond essentially to their areas on the Lorenz curve, okay? The closer that is to 1, is it 1 or is it 0? Hold on. Hold on just a second. The closer it is to 1, the more unequal it is. The closer it is to 0, the more equal it is. I'm sorry, did I say that before or did I have it reversed? Okay, good. The socialist democracies have the most equal distributions of income. So that's like Scandinavian countries, Germany, some of the East European nations, etc. And then you can see the United States kind of falls right in the middle there. But that's getting worse and worse every year. Given the amount of wealth in our country, we have what's considered unusually high inequality. Okay, I'm not going to get into some things other than to say that we have government programs that are designed to decrease income inequality through means-tested sort of transfers, what are called transfer payments. That means you have to demonstrate need in order to qualify for it. So we have some types of programs that the qualification is your age, right? So once you reach age 65, you can apply for Medicare. Once you reach age 67, you can get your highest level of Social Security, okay? So there are certain ones that are non-meat tested, right? So if you are laid off, you get unemployment insurance regardless of your income level, okay? Means tested ones are things like temporary assistance for needy families, also known as food stamps, supplemental security income, SSI, that is also known as welfare, earned income tax credits. These are kind of like tax credits that, and that means you pay no taxes and you actually get money back from the government, okay? A negative income tax is when you get tax credits. So even though you didn't maybe pay any taxes, you file your paperwork and you get money back, okay? Okay, that's it for notes for this, okay? Like I said, the only really important thing that you guys need to remember that you're gonna be tested on is the Lorenz curve and the Gini coefficient, so make sure you understand that. Let's go over your workbook, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm gonna divide you guys up into groups to work on 8, 9, and 10, okay? And we're gonna have to do it quick. All right, looking at number 1, make sure you guys get your workbooks out. Parker, can you do number 1 for us? A, B, and C.
I said A was a social cost because it impacted the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
There'd be a big conflict between the neighbors and the poultry farms because of no government intervention, and
Okay.
socially optimal outcome would be the neighbors asking the farms to stop or to the police or government.
Okay. Do you think that the socially optimal outcome is gonna be better or worse with any kind of government intervention? What do you think? Sophia, what do you think?
Would it try to make it be better since it's?
Yeah, I mean, government intervention is going to do a better job of providing the socially optimal quantity. Okay? And the reason why, there's just too many chickens. There's too many chicken farms for everyone who's impacted by the runoff into the rivers and streams to go knock on the door of every chicken farmer and ask them to stop. Okay? All right. Here you have to say whether or not the external was an external cost or an external benefit. Andy, part A.
So it was an external benefit.
Yeah. What would be an appropriate policy response?
I said it would be in subsidy.
Yeah, that'd work. Isa, B.
I said external benefit.
Mm-hmm. What kind of government policy? Subsidy for the to the producers, you know, like here, change all your machines, make the better flushing toilets. Olivia, part C.
I said that it was a cost and they could put a policy or like a tax if you like improperly dispose of it, or a subsidy for putting it like taking it to a correct
Yeah. Yeah.
place.
Have any of you guys ever tried to donate or recycle an old computer? They actually charge you to do the right thing, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. Like, I want to do the right thing. I should be getting money. That I take my old TV, my old computer, whatever, to the Hamilton County Electronic Recycling Center. Like, we have events where, like, we recycle stuff like batteries and things like that, and you get a fine for dumping them, but you think the garbage collectors are going through all your garbage bags to make sure you're not throwing away old batteries and old electronics and stuff, old paint, etc.? No, they're not. Anyway, dumbest thing ever. Okay, sorry. Mary, take 3A through D.
Okay. A, I said excludable and non-rival.
It is rival, and the reason it's rival is that there's only a certain number of spots per freshman class. You guys should know that more than anybody right now. Right? So go ahead, part B.
B, I said, well, I was just kind of confused. I said excludable, but I didn't know if you could like run out of energy or like.
Yeah, it is non-rival necessarily, but that being said, there is a maximum amount of amperage, right? We saw that happen in Texas when like they were doing brownouts and stuff because it was so hot. They didn't have enough electrical power to make sure everyone's lights and air conditioning could run. Do you guys remember that from this past summer? All right, C, a haircut.
Excludable and rival.
Yep. D, national defense.
Non-excludable and non-rival.
Correct. Okay. Bentley, please take E through H.
I said amusement parks were rival and excludable.
Yep.
And then city services spraying for mosquitoes, non-rival and non-excludable.
Okay. G.
Cable television, I said non-rival and excludable.
Correct. H.
Non-rival and excludable.
They are going to be both rival and excludable. If you give your dog that shot, that means another dog can't have the same shot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kendall, please take I through L.
Okay, for streetlights, I said they were non-rival and non-excludable.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the Panama Canal, I was kind of confused. I said it was rival, but I don't know if you have to like pay to go through it or
Yeah, you
anything.
do. You have to pay a fee.
So then it'd be exclusive.
Yeah.
And then for public toll roads and bridges, I said excludable and non-rival.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of gray area with the rivalry
Yeah.
part of it, because like you can't all go in at the same time, but it's like on a staggered thing. So I agree with you.
Okay.
Go ahead and
And
help.
then police and fire protection, I said rival and non-excludable.
I mean, that's also for the rivalry a little bit of a gray area. One would assume that they have enough police officers and fire brigades for the city's size, but we've all like heard stories of people waiting on 911 on hold and stuff like that. So there is a certain amount of rivalry based on the size of those two departments. Okay, so that's a little bit of a nuanced thing. Let's see, Safa, M through P.
For healthcare, I said excludable and rival.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the national forest campgrounds, I said rival and excludable.
Yeah, and sometimes those can be non-excludable and sometimes they're excludable, depending on the park. Sorry, go ahead.
And then for potato chips, I said excludable and rival.
Yep.
And then for airbags, I said non-excludable and rival.
It is excludable. Okay, actually. Let's just skip over that one. You guys will have examples on your test next week that are much more clear, with no nuance, no gray area, okay? Christina, please explain to us what a free rider is.
A free rider is somebody who has no incentive to pay for the consumption of the good or service. And 3 examples from the problems, I said the national defense, streetlights, and the police and fire department.
Okay. All right, I would like Christina, Safa, Sophia, and Lily to work together. Issa, Parker, Yuri, and Mary to work together, and then Kendall, Andy, Bentley, and Olivia, you 3 work together. The first group that I named, you are going to be working on number 8. The second group